Imagine someone handed you a stopwatch the day you were born, but instead of counting up, it's been counting down. You just can't see it. And every time you scroll endlessly through social media or argue with someone over pineapple on pizza, the timer ticks a little closer to zero. Sounds dramatic? That's because it is. Because you are running out of time. The Stoics didn't sugarcoat it. Death isn't some distant horror waiting at the finish line. It's walking beside you every day. That might sound terrifying, but trust me, it's the most liberating truth you'll ever embrace. Before we dive into why that is, don't forget to like and subscribe to help our journey grow. And stick around till the end, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you live the rest of your life. Number 1, death isn't the enemy. The Stoics believed that death wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be studied. Seneca once wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life." Not because he was morbid, but because he understood the clarity that mortality brings. Knowing you'll die one day forces you to confront what truly matters. But let's be real, most of us don't think about death until we're stuck in traffic behind a hearse or watching a movie where someone's life flashes before their eyes. We avoid it like a dentist appointment, but all that really does is rob us of the urgency we need to live well. When you stop treating death like a jump scare and start treating it like a mentor, things shift. Petty arguments don't feel so important. Regret becomes a luxury you can't afford. You become more intentional with how you spend your time, because every minute starts to feel like borrowed gold. In a way, death's greatest lesson is this. If you want to live fully, you have to stop pretending you'll live forever. That might sound heavy, but it's actually freeing. Think of it as a cosmic deadline, finally giving your procrastinating soul a reason to wake up early. Number 2, remember you will die. At the heart of Stoic practice is the phrase, Memento Mori, remember you will die. It's not just a reminder, it's a challenge. Every day, you're invited to ask, if today were my last, would I be proud of how I spent it? Spoiler, accidentally binge-watched 8 hours of conspiracy videos probably doesn't make the cut. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." And he wasn't being emo about it. He was training himself to cut the nonsense and get real about what matters. But how do we practically remember death without spiraling into a midlife crisis every Tuesday afternoon? Start small. Reflect on the fact that time is finite. Set your wallpaper to a skull if you must. Just don't let forgetfulness lull you into wasting your life. A healthy awareness of death doesn't make you gloomy. It makes you bold. You stop waiting for permission to live how you want. You stop delaying dreams until later, because you finally realize later might never come. That's not grim, that's honest. Number 3, the illusion of infinite time. We live like we have time to waste, because society teaches us that youth is forever, that 30 is the new 20, and that you can always start next year. The Stoics would laugh, politely of course, because they knew the most dangerous lie isn't that death is scary, it's that it's far away. Seneca said it best. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. In other words, we freak out about minor inconveniences, but casually waste days like we have endless supply. Make it make sense. Think about it. How many times have you delayed something important? Starting that project, calling your mom, fixing your health. You assume you'll do it tomorrow, until one day you run out of tomorrows. Oops. Recognizing the limits of time creates urgency. Not panic, not despair, just the realization that today actually matters. It's not a dress rehearsal. This isn't your trial run. This is it. The more you internalize that, the more meaningful your choices become. Number 4, humor in the face of mortality. Now let's get something straight. Stoicism doesn't mean walking around like a gloomy ghost muttering about death in a toga. The Stoics knew how to laugh. In fact, humor is a power move against fear. Laughing at death is like winking at the Grim Reaper and saying, "Not today, buddy." Take Epictetus. The man was born a slave, walked with a limp, and still managed to become one of the most respected philosophers in history. He didn't let his circumstances or mortality steal his joy. He once joked, "I must die, but must I die groaning?" Touché, Epictetus. Humor helps us create distance between ourselves and our fears. It lets us face the abyss without falling in. And besides, if you're going to die anyway, you might as well enjoy the ride and maybe make someone laugh along the way. So yes, be serious about your time. Be intentional. But don't forget to laugh, even at death. Because when you can laugh in the face of your own impermanence, you're no longer afraid. You're free. Number 5, leave now, leave nothing behind. The Stoics didn't just contemplate death, they used it to fuel life. Their mindset wasn't about dying well. It was about living so fully that when the end comes, you've got nothing left to regret. You didn't just exist, you lived. Think of your life as a fire. The flame doesn't last forever, but it can burn brightly. That means showing up fully in your relationships. That means creating instead of consuming. That means spending less time waiting and more time doing. When your end comes, and it will, you want to look back with peace, not panic. You want to know that you used your time wisely, laughed loudly, loved deeply, and didn't let fear of death keep you from living. So the question isn't, how long do I have? It's, what will I do with the time that remains? The Stoic answer? Everything. Do everything worth doing. And do it now, before the clock runs out. Number 6, death makes every choice sacred. When you realize life is short, something fascinating happens. Your decisions become sacred. That scroll session, that extra hour of sleep, that person you keep around just because it's comfortable, every moment starts to feel like a spiritual vote for the kind of life you're living. And the Stoics? They'd encourage you to vote wisely. This awareness is empowering, not paralyzing. It doesn't mean you obsess over every little choice. It means you stop being careless with your time. You start asking better questions. Is this meaningful? Is this aligned with who I want to become? Would I still do this if I knew I only had a year left? Epictetus taught that every situation is an opportunity to act with excellence. That includes how you talk to your neighbor and how you spend your lunch break. There's no such thing as a neutral moment when you realize each moment could be your last. In a world that pressures you to move fast and follow trends, Stoicism slows you down and brings you back to yourself. Death reminds you that life isn't a checklist, it's a canvas. And every choice is a brushstroke. Don't waste your colors. Number 7, let death shrink your ego. It's kind of hilarious how seriously we take ourselves. We get offended over internet comments, worry about what strangers think of our hairline, and obsess over being remembered. The Stoics saw this as cosmic comedy because death levels everyone. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire, yet reminded himself constantly that he'd one day be dust. He literally journaled things like, Alexander the Great and his mule driver were both brought to the same state by death. Talk about keeping your ego in check. When you accept that you'll die, your ego loses its grip. You stop trying to prove something to people who probably aren't thinking about you anyway. You no longer fear humiliation because you realize how ridiculous it is to be proud in the face of the infinite. And here's the punchline. Shrinking your ego actually makes you more powerful. You become more focused, more compassionate, and less reactive. When you stop trying to be immortal in reputation, you become more impactful in reality. Number 8, mortality destroys procrastination. If you truly understood how little time you had, you'd never waste another day saying, I'll start tomorrow. Death vaporizes the illusion that there will always be a better time to begin. The Stoics didn't say someday, they said now. Seneca warned that life is long if you know how to use it. But most people don't. We put off writing that book, starting that business, fixing that relationship, all while the clock ticks and our courage weakens. Here's the Stoic truth bomb. You're not waiting for the right moment. You're just hoping time will magically fix what you're avoiding. It won't. Only action fixes things. And only now is guaranteed. Procrastination is fear in disguise. The antidote? Mortality awareness. Remind yourself daily that you don't have forever. That idea you keep delaying? Build it. That apology you've been holding? Say it. That risk you're scared to take? Jump. Time won't wait. Number 9. Death gives life its urgency. It's ironic, but the thing we fear most, death, is the reason life feels so beautiful. You don't appreciate a sunset because it lasts forever. You appreciate it because it ends. The Stoics understood that impermanence gives value to every experience. Think of your favorite memories. They're powerful because they're finite. If you knew you had infinite time with someone, you'd probably never say the things that matter. Death creates urgency, and urgency births depth. When you know time is short, you stop coasting. Conversations go deeper. You listen more closely. You tell people how much they matter, not someday, but now. You live fully because you know it won't last. So yes, death is a thief, but it's also a gift. It gives you a reason to be awake while you're alive, a reason to savor, to create, to be bold. Life without death would be flat and colorless. Stoicism helps you see mortality not as a curse, but as the thing that makes everything count. Number 10, accept death, master life. The final Stoic lesson? Master your fear of death, and you master your life. The fear of death is like a software bug running in the background, draining your energy, warping your decisions, and keeping you from fully engaging with the present. The Stoics didn't deny death, they rehearsed it. Seneca practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst-case scenarios, including death, to build resilience. Why? Because once you accept the worst, nothing can control you. When you stop fearing death, you become less anxious about outcomes. You stop living defensively. You become less attached to things, less shaken by loss, and more anchored in what you can actually control: your character, your actions, your attitude. Accepting death doesn't mean being reckless. It means being courageous. It means showing up even when you're scared. It means pursuing meaning, not comfort. Because in the end, the point isn't to avoid death, it's to avoid never really living. You're running out of time, and that's not bad news. It's your greatest motivation. Stop living like you have forever. Start living like it matters. Because it does. If this gave you a wake-up call, or at least a gentle nudge wrapped in a skull-shaped gift box, then don't forget to like and subscribe to help our journey grow. Share this with someone who needs to stop waiting and start living. And remember, death isn't coming to ruin your life. It's coming to remind you to live it.